Welcome to episode 23 on the Woodwind Doubling channel. And as you can see, today we're talking about stands for saxophones and large instruments. Right, let's start off with the easy ones first. Small instruments like alto sax and tenor sax where we want to play doubles. Well, one of my go-to stands is the Hercules Stand. This is actually a convertible for alto or tenor. That locks up for alto, and then it slides down and locks for tenor. As you can see, it's got two peg points on it. Right now it's outfitted with a soprano sax and clarinet or flute peg. If you want more pegs than that, unfortunately, this is all it takes, and you're going to have to go to something outboard. What I'll do is if I'm playing lead alto in a big band, I will put the flute and clarinet on here, and I'll take the soprano and put it on its own separate peg. If you saw my episode where I detailed my gig rig for the Orange Devils, I actually have another stand that goes in my soprano all the time, so I've always got a place to put that if it doesn't go on here. Again, depends on what you're carrying, how much you want to carry. If you want to walk on stage with everything in one bunch, those are factors that you consider when picking a stand like that. This one's usually traveled with me on ships when I'm playing either alto or tenor, because it'll take the flute and clarinet pegs and do just fine for that. Now, also in alto or tenor stands, this one's actually set up as an alto stand right now. It can be used for tenor as well, but it means you've got to adjust the horns on it. This is a Sax Rack Stand. It's not seeing as much play these days. It's a little bulkier to carry around. It does have some advantages, though. It keeps the alto sitting higher up from the floor, so you don't have to reach over as much. If I was doing a gig where I had to sit on a stool or something like that, I would pick this one because it brings the horn up a bit. This is the Soprano Sax Peg. Underneath this little velvet bag arrangement, it actually looks like a corkscrew. So there's no defined stop. There's no base plate on it. The saxophone just slides down and stops naturally. Now, if you're doing a quick drop and then having to pick it up later, sometimes it might feel a little bit resistant. It does keep it centered well. I've felt very safe when using it. Not a problem. On the other side, there's a little adapter that's gone on here that is for putting a flute and clarinet peg. Now, the flute and clarinet peg are not with us right now because they are my favorite peg for my oboe and English horn. As we saw in the episode about small stands, that's what I've been using there. So this is a neat little rig if you want to take alto plus soprano and flute and clarinet, and you want to basically be able to pick the whole thing up and carry it on stage. Works great for that. Not the lightest thing to carry around. It's a fairly light stand, but it comes apart in several pieces, and you've got to put the whole thing together again. It's got its own carrying bag, which is nice that Sax Racks does that with their stands. So that's it for the smaller stands for alto and tenor. I'm going to grab the camera and give you a tour of the larger stands that I'm using now. All right, next up is my baritone stands. This is a Sax Rack's baritone stand. It's quite a substantial beast. Very, very stable on the floor. You could pretty much have somebody run into this thing and they'll trip over it and the horn will probably stay standing. Large set of horns up top. Some people aren't really crazy about this because you've got to lift the horn up and over those. I've actually seen people who trim these off a little bit. Nice thing is that essentially the same stand is what they use for their bass saxophone stand, and that means that it just has a different set of uprights on top, same bass on it. You can see it's got a fairly wide footprint, and this is very rugged where the bottom of the horn sits, so there's no distortion of the bell with this. Unlike the old style stands that had the bell ring, which tended to twist and distort the bell, I won't even touch one of those right now. Just can't stand it. This is the other great thing about this stand is it will also take pegs if you need them at the bottom. I rarely found that I had to do that. And it also comes with its own carrying bag. Now, previously, I used to use a tripod carrying bag to carry all my stands to gigs. And that was a nice solution, but this one is it's even better. Now, there are some times when I don't want to carry the Sax Rack stand with me. If I'm moved into the theater in Stratford, say, and I'm playing baritone there, I kind of like to leave that stand set up and leave it there. But I do have another stand that I can put my baritone on that I like, and that's a Hercules stand. Now, as you can see, it's a little more spare looking. It's not the kind of stand I want to kind of permanently mount anything on and leave it up during the run of a show. But it does fold up quite compactly, supports the horn well when I'm playing live on it, and has a peg slot on it. And so much of the time when I play baritone on a big band gig, say with the wee big band or the Canadian big band, I end up playing baritone and clarinet, and that's it. So having a stand that lets me put the baritone and one peg over there, very, very handy. There is another variant of this stand that they make, and it has a side stand on it if you look closely down here, there's a spot there for another peg. They make a version of it that has an alto and tenor peg. And again, that can be quite handy in some circumstances. For example, the second book in The Orange Devils is alto sax, clarinet, and baritone sax. So it'd be possible for a player doing that to have everything on this one stand, and it keeps things a little tighter on stage, nice and compact. My bass clarinet stand and contrabass clarinet stand is K&M. It's a good solid chrome steel, nice solid cup on the bottom of it. I've lost the rubber feet now, but that's rarely an issue. And I've made a slight modification to mine. I've actually spread the collar on top. These come stock with a collar that's actually kind of a square shaped. And as you can see, I've spread that open. That way it holds the contrabass clarinet, and it's got a little more leeway when you're putting the bass clarinet into it. It holds it quite well. It's also adjustable enough that it can do anything from an alto clarinet to a low E flat bass, low C bass, and right up to the contra. Now when I sit the contra in it, it's a little, the keys work sitting against this, but it's got good felt padding on it. It's fairly adjustable, but once things are dialed in, I rarely bother to adjust them. Back to Hercules for my bassoon stand. This is also usable as a bass clarinet stand, but I find that rubber cup on the bottom doesn't really work with the peg setup that I use. It can do in a pinch. Nice thing is there's a fore and aft adjusting. The leg that the cup is on moves back and forth, so you can angle things differently and adjust for the total length of the instrument. Traditional folding yoke that K&M has there. It's also got on the legs two sockets for pegs on it. They might be a little bit difficult to reach for some things, but again, if you're, say, just playing bass clarinet and B-flat clarinet on an orchestral gig, that could do quite nicely. Also, if you're baritone and, bassoon and clarinet, which comes up in a bunch of books, surprisingly, that's a handy one-stand version. Everything height adjustable, decently padded yoke up top that, again, it's spread a little wide so you can have a faster drop for the instrument. I've been quite happy with this. I do have some friends who've reported that the cup down here will wear after a while and possibly break. So I've been looking at ways of maybe reinforcing that. I'm keeping an eye on it right now. There is a wing nut underneath, so you can remove that completely and replace it with a cup of your own choosing. The whole stand folds down pretty well. And again, I've been quite happy using that, and it's not a very expensive option. It's also the, if friends are getting bass clarinet stands now, this is the one I recommend to them rather than getting the K&Ms. It's lighter, it's less expensive, it's got peg spots on it, so it's much more usable right out of the box. So there you have it, my little roundup of larger instrument stands for anything from alto with doubles up to baritone sax, bassoon, bass clarinet, contrabass clarinet. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Check in the show notes below, and there will be links to all of the manufacturers of these stands. And I really hope that you'll take the time to subscribe to the channel. If we get over that 100 subscribers point, it opens up a few nice features for me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on the Woodwind Doubling channel. Bye.